Welcome to Meet the Author Live from book publisher, New Degree Press, or NDP. I'm your host, John Saunders. This enterprise is now published. This enterprise is part of Manuscript Inc., and they've now published books from authors from 6 continents and earned a spot on the Inc. 5000 list for the second year in a row. This is the fastest growing privately held companies in America. Think you have a book in you? Want to start or accelerate your movement in the next 12 to 15 months? Visit manuscripts.com to learn more. Today, this is a comprehensive coaching program that will take you from idea to published book, not just published, but published like a second-time author, which includes audience creation and activation. Today, we're doing a special segment of Meet the Author Live with new author Jason Patton. In 30 minutes, we'll get the opportunity to learn everything valuable there is to know about the author and answer your questions live in the chat. But to start, please drop your where you're calling in from or joining us from in the chat, which is always fun to make sure you know how to use that tool, and let us know where you're joining us from. And as we go, please feel free to drop comments and questions in there, and we will jump on those as best we can as we go through the program. As I shared, I have with me today Jason Patton, brand new author, just published his book, Humanly Possible, A New Model for a More Inclusive World. He is also an upcoming guest on the New Degree Press Creator Community Podcast. His episode will come out in just a couple of days, wherever you get podcasts, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. A little bit about Jason. He's a Ph.D. author, consultant, and workshop facilitator in the fields of global leadership and global diversity, equity, and inclusion. For 7 years, he was the director of the Robertson Center for Intercultural Leadership at UC Berkeley's International House. Prior to that, he served in high-level leadership positions at several organizations in the U.S. and China. Jason's passionate conviction is that humanity has just scratched the surface of their potential for creating a world where everyone belongs. Those with more power and privilege can and must apply specific skills and strategies for using their power to create more inclusive workplaces and a more inclusive future for all. Jason, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
It is such fun to have you on here, and what a pleasure to get to interview you and hear your full story on the Creator Community Podcast. But this is, I always enjoy these segments, one, because they're live, and two, because we get to sort of get to know you a bit better. But let's start with, what does it feel like to have a book out there with your name on it, wherever books are sold online?
I still haven't adjusted to that fact. It's kind of surreal. But mostly I'd say it's just really gratifying, and it's also pretty exciting. I mean, I remember listening to I don't know if it was an author or a musician a few years ago talking about when they had published their first book or released their first album, and that they had come to learn that at that moment it ceased to be theirs anymore, exclusively theirs, and it really became something that belonged to everyone. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time with that, but I understand that that's absolutely central to the whole process of something being released into the public and having the impact. It becomes something that belongs to everybody, and of course, that's my hope, right? That's a big reason why I wrote the darn thing, was to get stuff out of my head and out into the broader world.
It's so interesting, right? This creator process. One, it's put you in a pretty vulnerable place. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
This creation journey, because you're putting something out there that's permanent. And once you put it out there, that's it. And I'll never forget, I got asked a while ago, what was the hardest thing about writing a book? And somebody, I was a guest on another show, and I thought about it for a minute, and I said, deciding when it was done, because it's such a permanent thing. And when there's one time as an author, you have to hit send, and that's it, right? That's the end of your book. So what was the hardest part about it for you?
That was a gulp moment for sure.
Right.
One of the things, as far as deciding when it's done, I think that was there were a lot of things that I appreciated about having my first book be created through this process of working in the Book Creators Program, because basically the clock ran out, and the book ended up being where it was at the moment that it was due. Right. So the idea was, let's have it be a tight and complete whole to the extent that I could at the time that it was due. So that's one piece. And the other piece was, I really appreciated that I had to attest that I had read it out loud 3 times, the entirety of the book, 3 times between submission to copy editing, between submission and then getting it back from copy editing, and then between getting it back from copy editing and sending off to proofreading. Each of those times I had to attest that I had read it out loud 3 times. And that was actually really reassuring because it was like, I think collectively we probably caught just about everything, whether it was a typo, a misspelling, a bad wording, or just some kind of red flag. It's like, don't say that, right?
It's so interesting how when you read a book out loud, it allows for me. I'm curious what it meant for you, but for me, it sort of lets you see it and hear it objectively, and sort of read it as another person might read it.
Yes,
Did that happen for you?
definitely
Yeah.
got out of my own head, and I think more into the mindset of a reader.
And it actually got me to clean up a number of sentences. I was like, why is this sentence
Yes,
so long? This is way too
totally.
long. No one's going to read a sentence this long, right?
I discovered an entire paragraph that that I had somehow copied and pasted from one chapter to another. So it was like the same paragraph was in 2 chapters. I was like, okay, I'm really glad that I caught that.
So funny, right? These things are, it's amazing when you're working on a book that's 250 pages long, give or take, these things can happen. That is fantastic. Well, I'm glad you had that experience. Glad you got it done. What do you think you learned about writing this book? You know, right, you came into this with so much knowledge, but how did your learning grow from there?
Uh, there's so many things that I learned from this process, but I think first and foremost, writing is a team sport. And, the tagline of the program, "Never write alone," I think is just, it's a brilliant tagline. And I mean, I think if you think about the kind of stereotypical author journey, it's like you lock yourself in a dark room for months on end and you don't do anything or think about anything other than this book. Then it's supposed to be this torturous process. And this was the opposite of that. It was wonderful. This very, very large, vibrant, and incredibly technically competent community of editors and marketing folks and on down the line who were involved with me in the process from the very beginning. So writing as a team sport was a huge lesson for me. And I also, just in terms of the content of the book, I learned a tremendous amount from the people that I interviewed for the book. When I went in, I had a rough plan for the book's content, but once I started interviewing people, I had to make a lot of changes because what I needed to do was work with actual data from actual human beings, and I couldn't, change what they said in order to fit my model. I had to change my model in order to fit what they said. Some of the things they had to say didn't fit neatly into those boxes that I thought I was going to be using for the book. So I had to adapt the frameworks and models so that they would account for actual real life human beings and what they had experienced.
And to what degree did that challenge your thinking?
I think that there was nothing that people said that I think violated any of the core principles or tools or frameworks or models. It was more expansive. That is to say, I was looking at things through this set of lenses, and then they're showing me all these other lenses that I could use. So it actually it expanded, I think, what I was able to shed light on, or how I was able to shed light on what they were saying. Because what I'm trying to do is pull out principles and ultimately specific actions based on not only what's in my head, but what's in their head. So it really ended up expanding the book in a lot of ways.
I really appreciate that answer because it's part of the journey, part of what you get coached through, right? You come in, you think, I'm going to write this book and it's going to be called this, and this is what the chapters are going to look like. Many times we have some version of that in our heads, and you go through the process of interviewing, researching, and as you said, it really helps to expand your thinking. And at the end of the day, I hope you would agree, and I think you would, that it really enriches the book and makes it better.
Yes.
And it looks like our dear friend, your new friend, Lauren, would agree. Thank you, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Spot on. Jason's new book is available today on Amazon. I dropped the link in the chat along with his full version of his podcast in the creator community on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you consume podcasts. Let's keep going because I do want to get to the rapid fire questions. And again, please do drop it in the chat where you're calling in from and any other comments or questions that you have. Jason, you're a busy guy. How did you fit this thing into your life? The book journey.
I'll go back to community again. I had a bunch of people holding me accountable. I had weekly calls early on with my the first of several editors that I worked with, the developmental editor, and we had our weekly calls. So those are in the calendar. I don't want to show up for those calls saying, I didn't do my homework, right? We set very concrete goals for each week. One of the things that we did early in the program was identify what kind of writer are you? And I don't remember what all the choices are. I just remember that I am a deadline writer. So if you say do X, Y, or Z by such and such day and such time, that really motivates me to get it done, and I'm much more likely to get it done. So for me, it was mostly just a matter of putting meetings and deadlines into my calendar, and then it's outside of my brain. And then all I have to do, it's very simple. I just do what the calendar tells me to do, and then it works out.
It's great when technology actually can make us more
Yeah,
efficient
I
and
know, right?
impactful, right? That is amazing. Oh, and I'm going to drop Lauren's other note in here. You're absolutely brilliant. How many people have said that to you today, Jason?
That's a super nice thing to say. I guess I appreciate that. I don't know. I feel like I wanted to just to get back, to bring it back to the context of the book. I feel like I've been incredibly lucky in my life to have been exposed to so many different. First of all, the way my parents raised me and the way they got me asking questions from an early age. I mean, on and on and on. And I know we're going to get into the specific topic of luck and how it relates to privilege and all that later. But I've been incredibly fortunate to have access to a lot of different ways of thinking about things, a lot of different knowledge and education and all of that. And my goal throughout, I think there was probably a time, well, actually more than a time in my life, a big, huge chunk of my life where, if somebody would say that to me, I'd be like, feel like, oh yeah, yay me, I'm brilliant. And I think one of the things that I've been working really hard on in my life is just like, let's just try to get the ego out of it. I mean, we're human and we all have egos, right? So we can't really avoid the ego. It's really a matter of being honest with what's happening in our own mind. What I'm ultimately trying to get to with the question is like this. I don't want anything about this to be about me. I want this to be about what each of us can do every day to make workplaces and the world more inclusive. That's where my focus is. And if I can use whatever tools I've got up here to make that, to realize that in the world, then fantastic. Then, thank whatever deity you believe in or don't believe in, thank randomness, whatever it is. But that has got nothing to do with me ultimately.
Before we dig into this luck question a bit more, and I love that concept, why, Jason? Why is diversity, equity, and inclusion so important to you?
I guess to put it in the starkest terms, people are suffering and dying every day because of inequitable and unjust policies and systems all around the world, very much including right here at home in the United States. And while hopefully in most of our workplaces, people aren't literally dying every day, although as we've seen, I mean, we're very close to home here in Half Moon Bay recently, the farmers and the shooting there. I mean, people do actually die in the workplace as well. I think for most of us, it's not a literal question of survival in the workplace every day, but the same patterns of thought and action that lead to and perpetuate unjust policies and systems, those are alive and well every single day. And they function mostly at the unconscious level. So it's really easy to get overwhelmed by all of that, especially when we become more aware of whatever role we might be playing passively, actively or passively, but usually passively, in perpetuating injustice. And so for folks like me with more privileged identities, the systems that are in place, they tend to benefit people like me. And what's that have to, like, why? Because of total randomness. I happen to inhabit this body. I happen to have been raised by educated parents who knew how to point me towards resources that would help me to succeed in the terms that the society that I grew up in defines success. Yes, I've worked hard. Nobody's trying to tell me I haven't worked hard. But have I worked harder than, say, a struggling single parent working 3 jobs to feed their family? No, not even close. So long story short, my why is really about finding ways to minimize human suffering and to maximize human happiness. That's really what it boils down to. And that's why diversity, equity, and inclusion matters to me.
Unbelievable mission behind your work here. And I'll say really impressive that you've come to this level of awareness. I know some people, I've certainly seen it throughout my career that, you start to have conversations around this, particularly white males, I'll say, sometimes feel threatened by these conversations and say, well, what did I do wrong? Why? And suddenly they feel like they did something wrong. What would you say to that person?
The first thing I would say is I understand. Um, it's predictable. So much of human behavior is predictable. We have these. I mean, I think to some extent this is true generally, but I'll just stick specifically with the United States and the myths that we have built up around what it means to be American and what it means to be successful. And those myths are all around kind of the rational human mind and, the Horatio Alger myth of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And we're really, really wedded to these ideas that we earned what we have. And if you don't have what I have, it's because you didn't work hard enough. You have some character flaw, some kind of moral shortcoming. And these ideas are burned into our brains. They're hardwired into our brains. And so it's completely natural that the more privilege we have, the more defensive we're going to get when someone asks us the question and asks us to reflect on and consider, well, what factors were there other than your hard work, your moral rectitude, your great discernment, whatever those factors are that I feel like are in my control and make me feel entitled to whatever it is that I have. So it's a completely normal and there are defensiveness, superiority, shame, guilt. These are predictable reactions that our human brain with the threat detection mechanism with the amygdala, those reactions are going to happen. Okay, great. So what do we do with that? Do we just keep going down that road and then wall ourselves off? I hope we can do that less and less. And so the first thing is to acknowledge and validate the feelings of defensiveness, shame, guilt, and all of that. And I think that can then soften the threat response, open up access to the neocortex and other parts of the brain where we can perform empathy. Perform probably isn't the right verb there, but where we can actually experience empathy and other emotions that are going to help us break down that threat reaction. So it's really, that's the first step, I think, is just to validate the feelings. And it's not, there's no moral flaw in somebody for having those reactions. Those are just like everything. They're burned into us by the structures around us. They're hardwired into our brains.
Unbelievably thoughtful man here. I'm going to go with Lauren again and add, be the second person to call you brilliant here today, and just so thoughtful about this concept. And I really appreciate the presence that you bring to every conversation. We've talked about this before, certainly in the interview we did, the longer form interview, and how you're willing to take this approach and thoughtfulness to these very difficult and complex issues that continue to be a challenge for all of us. If any of you want to learn more about Jason, definitely go check out his website, jasonpatton.com, or visit him on LinkedIn by his name. And you can go out and buy his book today on Amazon, Humanly Possible. A couple more questions before we get to the rapid fire content. Okay. Let's get to this luck concept here a little bit. You said luck is often part of the journey. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, luck is everywhere. As I was just sharing a moment ago, it's like I was born into a particular kind of body with a particular kind of position in a very specific society, and the parents that I had and access to resources and all of that. The thing is, it's hard to notice when things are working. It's harder to notice when things are working in our favor than when things are working against us. And it's, forgive me if this is a really trite example, but it really had an impact on me. So I was running a race. It's 2014. It was early 2014. It was almost a decade ago. And I was running along and I was having the best race. I was feeling, God, I feel so good. And the miles are clicking off and I'm looking at my watch and I'm going, am I really running this fast? I'm so great. I'm in such great shape. Oh, this is awesome. And then the course was designed as an out and back. And so we hit the turnaround And suddenly I got this full force wind in my face. And I'm like, what just happened here? Oh, okay. So, damn. Not only do I have to run against this wind now, and my miles are going to be way slower, but I also have to let go of that idea that I was just so great. I actually had the wind at my back and I didn't even know it. And that was a major, yes, it's true. I trained hard. Yes, it's true. I had discipline and all of the, again, the personal traits of success, right? That's true. And I was lucky. I had a tailwind, and it became obvious to me as soon as I turned around, but it wasn't obvious to me while it was at my back. It was obvious to me when it was in my face. And so it can be true that I work hard. It can be true. Those can all be true. And I'm damn lucky.
What a great analogy to really make it so real for all of us, right? Wind is behind your back. You're making these record miles in this marathon and thinking, gosh, I'm better than I thought I was, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly the wind turns on you. A couple of great comments in the chat I want to drop in here. Dr. Cassidy jumped in here. Been lucky to learn so much from Jason's process. Excited to see the finished project here. Gig Harbor, Washington. Thanks for jumping on there,
Thank you,
Dr.
Trisha.
Cassidy. Oh, my friend Kevin from Uganda, who was a lovely host for us when we did a book launch down there this summer. Thank you for joining us, Kevin, from the Pearl of Africa. Oh, and another NDP author, Hannah Austin.
Hey,
from
Hannah.
Portland. She was on here yesterday. Thanks for joining us, everybody. A couple more questions, and then we'll jump into the rapid fire segment, which is always so much fun. Goals for 2023, my friend.
Goal number one is to keep growing as a human every single day. So for me, that means finding new ways and more ways to minimize harm. I cause harm every day, whether I want to or not. And I want to become ever more mindful of the ways in which I do that, so that I can minimize harm and can maximize the positive impact that I have on the world. So that's kind of first and foremost, always front of mind for me every single day. And so 2023 is no different from any other year for me in that way. Secondly, I have 2 businesses that I'm trying to grow right now. And by the end of 2023, I want my businesses to be having an impact that's far beyond where they are right now. And then third, this is a personal goal, and John, in other contexts, you and I have talked about this in a little bit more detail, but I do run a lot. And there's a race, it's an ultra marathon. It's a 100-mile race. It's called the Western States 100-mile endurance run. And it's kind of the granddaddy of North American ultra running. And I was fortunate enough to have my name pulled in the lottery after 5 years of trying. So last Saturday in June, I think it's the 24th this year, I'm going to toe the line at Olympic Valley at Lake Tahoe in California, and try to get myself to Auburn, California in under 30 hours. So that's a big goal for me.
You're going to run for 30 hours straight?
Not really straight, and there's a lot of walking. I mean, it's up and down and up and down and up and down. But that's the 30 hours is the cutoff. So it'd be great if I could do it in something closer to 25, 26, 27 hours. But and you're not moving straight. You're stopping at aid stations. But it's 100 miles, so it's something. And it's very intimidating, but it's extremely exciting because, like I said, I've been trying to get into this race for 5 years, and I finally got lucky. Got
that
my
is
name pulled.
Unbelievable. I'm all for sports and getting outdoors and whatnot, but 30 hours straight, I don't know that I've ever pulled that one off. I'm quite sure I haven't, but good luck with that.
Thank you.
Last question before we dive into the rapid fire.
Mhm.
And please, if you do have questions or comments, drop them in the chat, and we'll continue to do that. We'll try to answer those as we go. Number one actionable goal from the book, Jason, humanly possible.
Notice the hard feelings in ourselves, the kinds of feelings that are likely to cause harmful action if we don't interrupt them, and interrupt them before we act on them.
Intercept, right?
Yeah.
So
notice and interrupt. So these two kind of go hand in hand.
So powerful. Well, thank you for taking us through those questions. Now let's jump to the rapid fire questions, where we get to learn really everything there is valuable to know about you, Jason. We know about the marathon coming up, the 100-mile run. I mean, dear God, it makes my calves ache just thinking about that. First question, my friend, rapid fire. Favorite sandwich?
Sandwich. Okay. Huh. I'm not much of a sandwich guy, and the reason is I've been mostly vegetarian for almost 30 years now, but I do eat fish. You know what I love? I've really taken a liking to some of the more recent fake meats, like Impossible Burger, Beyond Beef, because they have that mouthfeel. So like a really juicy Beyond Burger that you can really sink your teeth into. And I also love a fried fish sandwich.
See, I said earlier, we learned everything there is valuable to know about the author. I asked you your favorite sandwich. We just learned like 3 new things about you, buddy. Favorite color?
Red.
Love it. And yet it didn't turn up on your cover here, did it? Maybe just a little?
Yeah, long story there, but yeah, red is just I've had an ambivalent relationship with it over the years, because it's so sort of, I don't know, it's like the most obvious color to like, but I just love the life, the fire. Yeah.
You know, I bet you, Little Red Corvette, we thinking Prince here. Is that what's happening?
I love the song, but I can't sign off on the content of the song.
Favorite or most memorable vacation spot?
The town that I was raised, Missoula, Montana, was a go-to destination for my life partner and my kids and I. I love it there. We don't go there anymore because my parents moved to Kauai. So, and we haven't all visited them there yet. They just moved a couple of years ago. But Missoula is our favorite spot. I'm sure Kauai is going to be just fine.
Won't be terrible.
Yeah.
Big Sky Country, love it. Scariest animal?
Probably the mountain lion. The reason is it's probably the most legit threatening animal that I'm likely to come across especially when I'm running on the more remote trails here in the Bay Area. I had an experience a few years ago where I heard coming from the bushes what I'm pretty darn sure was a growl from a mountain lion. And I checked out my running file afterwards, and I ran really fast for a good quarter mile after I heard that growl. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Favorite or most memorable movie?
It's a movie called Existenz. Came out in 1999. It was directed by David Cronenberg. I love movies, stories, TV shows, whatever, where there's an alternate reality that's just a little bit different from actual reality. And I think that movie plays on those themes beautifully. And I would watch it anytime, any day with anyone again.
I think you just explained why very beautifully why I so appreciate post-impressionistic art. First concert you went to?
Not a lot of concerts came through Missoula when I was growing up. So when Loverboy came to town, I jumped at the chance, and the opening act was Quarter Flash. So they had the one hit song called "Harden My Heart." Do you remember that?
Loverboy, is that Everybody's Working for the Weekend?
Yes, Working for the Weekend was their big. They had a number of other hits, but that was their big one.
That's amazing. Favorite smell?
Favorite smell has got to be after a thunderstorm in Montana.
Oh, wow. The earth, wet, nice. Last photo on your phone?
Oh, probably today's Wordle. Let me see. Yeah, I take a screenshot on my Wordle every day, so there you have it.
And who do you send it to?
I send it to a former colleague of mine who is my Wordle buddy.
Nice. I have 2 Wordle buddies I send. We trade every day. Yeah. So with the last question, the one before, tell us your favorite song to sing.
I've terrified a lot of people at karaoke bars trying to sing "Total Eclipse of the Heart" by Bonnie Tyler. I feel like it ruins my voice, and it ruins the ears of everybody who's with me.
I feel like we just found your first video for your new YouTube page. You singing that song. What is one thing you own that you should really throw out?
Oh God. One thing I own that I should really throw out. Yeah, probably. I've got, every time you cross the finish line at a race, they give you a medal. I've got way too many of those. I should just cull them. They just take up space in my closet.
Too many awards, all this gold hanging around. I mean,
well, I've run like 50 something, not ultras, right? But no matter what distance they give you, and it's nice, right? But they're just taking up space. I should probably donate them to Goodwill. I don't know what Goodwill would do with them though. So I don't want to burden Goodwill with a bunch of stuff.
We've got a quick update here from Kim for you here, buddy. Loverboy is coming back. Get your tickets now. Thank
Kim.
you. Thank you for sharing that little bit of update there.
I don't know whether to be thrilled or mortified, but thanks for the hot tip there, Kim.
Let's jump ahead here. Your book, you've got a number of praise quotes on it. Let's share one with the listeners, if you would. I know you have many.
Yeah, I'll share one from my good friend Ed Frauenheim, who actually is the person who introduced me to the Book Creators Program.
Oh, nice.
He himself is a 4-time published author, most recently of Reinventing Masculinity, The Liberating Power of Compassion and Connection.
Oh, wow.
Packed with fresh thinking on questions of equity and power, peppered with the author's moving, vulnerable stories, and backed up with sound research, Humanly Possible will move hearts, feed heads, and guide hands.
Wow, that is impressive. Couple more questions about the actual journey itself, and we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you again, everybody. If you have other questions or comments, drop them in the chat. We're going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes here. Favorite writing location as you wrote your book?
Right here where you see me. I'm this beautifully naturally lit open environment here, kitchen back there, living room back there. We got views of a forested hill that way and views of the San Francisco Bay this way. It's just the most inspiring, beautiful location to write.
Sounds lovely. Most memorable moment in the writing journey?
Probably making my ebook live on Amazon.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Started to see, I think you're up to a dozen or more 5-star reviews. That's always fun to see as well. Best part about being an author thus far? I know it's early, but thus far.
Feeling like I've left something. Feeling, I'm of a certain age where I feel like I've got, God willing, if I can stay healthy and all that and live, 2-3 more decades, fantastic. But at the same time, starting to think about what have I left? What is my legacy? And I've got a book now. And as you said, it's like, it's permanent, right? I mean, as permanent as anything in this universe is, right? But, so I think that's the feeling like there's something that I have now that long after I'm gone, it's still there.
It'll still be on Amazon. Jason, what would you say to those considering writing a book?
I do it. Join the Book Creators Program. I mean, that's the best advice I have for people. You've heard me in other contexts, John, talk about so many things that I love about the program, but just do it. Jump in, do it. You will not be disappointed. You will have a book when all is said and done, and you'll learn a ton. And there's just a ton. There's so many great reasons to do it.
You'll have a book if you follow all the steps, right? Get through all these.
Totally follow the process, and you'll end up with that product.
That is awesome. Describe your writing journey in 5 words. Doesn't have to be a sentence.
Well, 4 words popped to mind, which is, again, apologies if it sounds trite, but it's so true that it takes a village.
It takes 4.
It's only 4. Yeah, which I guess is good, right? Because we're supposed to be pithy and efficient with our communication. That's one of the things that we learn about in the writing journey.
I'll add always to the end of that, and then we'll get to 5 words, right?
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Always. I love it. Closing thoughts for our listeners here, Jason, about Humanly Possible and your work.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I mean, it's like you're in the middle of a busy day and you decide to carve out time to come and participate in this. So I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude I just feel so much gratitude for all of the support that I've received along the way. And I just really, really, really hope that, that the book can have the impact that I want it to have. And, yeah, that's really it. I just feel a lot of gratitude about everything related to this book writing process and this conversation that we've had the chance to have today.
Gratitude seems like a recurring theme in your life, my friend, and I certainly appreciate you bringing this to everything it is that you do, certainly your book and your work. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show here today and taking the time to be on the podcast, which, as I said, is available wherever you listen to podcasts out there. But and thank you to our listeners out there for joining this episode of Meet the Creator Live. Definitely go check out Jason's book, Humanly Possible, a new model of leadership for a more inclusive world, wherever you buy books online. And join us Monday for another live episode with new author and venture capital CEO David Olavencio to learn about effective networking. Jason, great to see you. Thank you so much again for joining us here today.
You're welcome, John, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for interviewing me, and just thank you for bringing all of this stuff out. You've done a wonderful job partnering with me on this, and you're really good at your job. So thank you.
You're too kind. I really appreciate that. Thanks again to all our listeners. I'm your host of the Creative Community, John Saunders. Keep creating.